I recently interviewed Brian Clemente of Hippocrates, and we were speaking, and I often talk about the time we eat and what's become really important to me over these last couple of years to understand how the sun, not only from a sleeping and waking standpoint, but the sun in general, getting sunlight and how healing it is and helpful it is. But we would talk about the energy of not only the sun but of food, and there's a special camera where you could take a picture of the food and you could see the energy in the
Yeah, it's
food.
Kirlian photography.
So can you explain this? What you were telling me was something I said I want to do a video and let people hear what you were saying about that. So explain that before we end. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. If you Kirlian photography is a type of photography where you could actually take a picture of a living, something that's living and something that's not, whether it's a plant or an animal, a human. You could actually take a picture and you could see their aura. You know what I mean? And the colors of the aura indicate a lot. You have some people have flaming auras, and there's people that claim they could read auras. I believe that. I believe that's true. I mean, one time I went to visit a friend of mine in the city, and there was a woman there and kept looking at me. I said, what is she looking at, And she said, and I was on a raw diet, and I was running, and I'm also a big fan of breathing. I do like samurai breathing and everything. And she was looking at me, and she told my friend, your friend has a huge aura, you know what I mean? So if you're eating a bad diet, your body generates energy through the Krebs cycle. You know what I'm saying? You do absorb a certain amount of energetic efficiency from the sun and from being grounded. Walking barefoot on the earth, the electrons from the earth's energy actually makes you more energetic. As far as you absorbing, like in the New Age, they're talking about you absorbing energy, from the cosmos. That's nonsense as far as I'm concerned. I never believed that. Your body just generates energy through the Krebs cycle. Food, now this is going to sound crazy, I know that, but I'm going to say it anyway. Food in itself does not really give you energy. It just takes it away. The reason I say that, when you eat the right foods, the raw food, vegan diet, small amounts of animal protein, you don't overeat, your body generates its own energy through the Krebs cycle. It generates its energy. You understand? So then, but if you eat all the wrong foods, like poor President Trump, I wish I knew the guy. I would talk to him. I like him. I'd say, the type of diet, and he's got a lot of energy, but it's all stimulated energy coming from your adrenal glands. So you can eat the worst diet in the world. If you drink 3 or 4 cups of coffee a day and a couple of diet sodas, you sleep 2 hours a night. That's people become adrenaline junkies. I've seen people that were adrenaline junkies, people that have anxiety. They're out there, they're always going. They're driven by their anxiety. If you got anxiety, you could have an IQ of 180. Your anxiety makes your decision, not your IQ. So there's a lot of abstract science out there. So if you drink a lot of energy drinks and you eat a lot of spicy foods and you're drinking coffee, you don't have to sleep. I know people that did. I knew one guy, the Vietnam veteran. Nice guy. He was crazy. He was a great runner. He used to run down the middle of Victory Boulevard on the line. All the traffic had to go to get out of his way. He lived on, and he was a good runner. But he lived on coffee and some other things I wouldn't even mention. But he drank 5, 6, 7 cups of coffee a day and soda. Guy could run forever, but he died when he's 51 years old, 52 years old. And he was a great runner. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Stimulated energy and energy that your body creates. And you can stimulate yourself, In fact, a lot of people say that, that we, I remember once a guy that was very intelligent guy, intellectual. I'm a Christian. I'm a born-again Christian. He says, Freddie, you're brainwashing yourself. When you're reading the Bible, you believe it so strongly that it's becoming a reality in your life. I says, well, I don't think so. But if that's what's happening, that's wonderful, because it changed my life dramatically. I went from being a different person, somebody which I shared numerous times, being a dyslexic when I was a kid, getting kicked out of 3 schools before I was 15 years old, you know, and going from that point where, 6 years ago, I took a special test to see if you had any brains at all. I come out in the top 5%. I'm not bragging. So I don't know. How'd that happen? And I was pretty much of a mess when I was a kid. I got to tell you the truth. That's why I got into going to the gym a lot, because I thought I had no future in anything. And my faith in my lifestyle, it gets all the credit. And I remember, don't forget, 65 years ago, when you started eating a raw diet, everybody thought you was a maniac. Crazy people. But I was seeing people. I created my intermediate level diet. I was seeing people get better left and right. It was unbelievable. But now people are just so confused because of the social media. I call it, paralysis by analysis. People say, "Oh, gee, I think I'm gonna listen to that guy to get on." Then another guy comes on. Then you get some guy come on, flexing his muscles, and say, you got to have a muscle to be healthy. Not really. Bodybuilders don't live a long time, and all the strongest men in the world, these powerlifters that weigh 350 pounds, they don't live a long time. Nobody's stronger than them. The deadlift world's record now is 1,100 pounds. 1,100 pounds. When I was training, Bob Peoples, who weighed about 179 pounds, was deadlifted 730 pounds. And he was a lean guy. He had the world's record. When I was training heavy, I deadlifted at 200 pounds, I deadlifted 620 pounds. I wouldn't try it. If I didn't have that bad accident, I would still be working out like that. I wouldn't have worked out a lot, but I have to work my training, what I do. I work out around, the nature of my injuries. I've had some very serious injuries I got to be careful with, I can't fool around. I got a cage in my back. Thanks to Dr. Alexander Hughes, a hospital surgery, I was in trouble. I could have ended up in a wheelchair,
Amazing.
But I'm not complaining. And I feel good. People say, "Freddie, how do you feel?" I don't want to exaggerate. Say, "Oh, very wonderful." No, I feel good. You know what I'm saying?
Amazing.
I'm enjoying my life. I go to Florida to, go down there, go to the beach every day. I still try to help people. And the good thing about it is I'm not dogmatic. I meet people where they're at, and I try to solve their problem. Don't forget, there's a tremendous amount of psychology to what you eat. Cultural background. You take people that were Italian by name, come from Italy. They eat a certain way. People that are Hispanics come from the Caribbean, a certain way. People come from Jamaica, eat a certain way. People come from, I had clients in the Middle East that came from all over the Middle East. I had clients from Israel. They had good choices over there. But all I would do is warn people to realize you don't have to go out in the back. I'm looking out on a golf course, beautiful golf course. You don't have to go out on the golf course and eat the lawn. I don't want people to think, sometimes I tell my wife, don't tell people what I eat when we go to fair. I don't want people to think that they have to eat like me if they're going to change their diet. That's not true at all. You can change your diet, leave out all the processed food, eat 2 or 3 meals a day, practice intermittent fasting, don't eat after close as you can to sundown. You're going to be a healthy person. That's it. You don't have to take 1,000 vitamins and things like that. This is not complicated. And people keep making it complicated. I think the reason they want to make it complicated is because they want to hook them and sell them something. That's what I think. I think a lot of people just, I've seen more people on social media. I wouldn't pay the least attention to them. They just don't, There's a couple people there. I watch them. I say, boy, do people really believe a guy like this? You know what I mean?
Sure.
You got all these magic gimmicks now. If you're losing your mind, you got dementia, you put cinnamon in apple cider vinegar and all these magic formulas. Come on, give me a break. Ridiculous, It's your body that heals you. Your body is the miracle. When you leave out all the processed food, and follow some simple natural laws, you're on God's operating table. You're living in a biological design that the body was designed to live in. It's that simple. Oh no, I gotta smoke a cigar and I gotta have a couple drinks because the wine has resveratrol, and people in Italy and France, they drink wine and some of them live to be 100 years old. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Resveratrol was the rage 20 years ago. Now they realize 2 drinks twice a week, according to statistics, what I don't like quoting, but I believe it's true. 2 drinks twice a week gives you between a 30 and 35% better chance of getting cancer. Alcohol is not good for you. It's certainly not good for your liver. I was just talking to somebody the other day, it's going to have to get a liver transplant. I hope they don't. Your liver performs roughly 500 different functions. I was watching on television, a doctor got sued, because he took out the wrong organ. Instead of taking out the person's spleen, he took out his liver. He killed them. Can you imagine? A medical doctor that don't know the difference between a spleen and a liver? Just basically, it's on the opposite side of your body. It's like cutting off your head instead of cutting off your toe. You got gangrene in your foot. Instead of cutting off your foot, you cut off the person's head. God, it's not funny. It's really sad, really.
And it's happening. I mean, I think
I know.
one of the most common causes of illness and death is mistakes by doctors.
Yeah, allopathic medicine. I forget what the state. Paul, I have to admit, in my old age, I've lost my patience. Up until about 10 years ago, I had infinite patience. I would listen to people say the most ridiculous things and it wouldn't rile me up. Now, I can't help it, People say the most. The other day, I was at a wedding the other day. I told you it was the most unbelievable wedding. And, they know a person that was there that was very sick, and I helped her. One guy was bringing a lot of people around to talk to me. And I try to be as nice as I possibly can, But you get people that came up, and I'm thinking about one person. He was looking to get into not an argument, but he was saying things that were ridiculous, So I didn't even, and then one guy asked me if he could help, certain diseases that you could help a person, like autoimmune disease. That's absolutely. If you're willing to change your life, what you leave out is the key. Nutritionists can't heal you. Doctors really can't heal you. They can only facilitate the body to heal. A doctor can help you to heal with surgery, like Dr. Hughes helped me. I had to get surgery, otherwise I would have been a cripple. Doctors do help people. Emergency medicine, trauma and surgery, you go to a doctor. You don't eat an apple or drink a glass of juice. You know what I mean? But chronic disease is the human body is designed to prevent or remedy chronic disease in most cases. That's simple. I don't know what else to say. I believe in try to keep it simple. One thing I want to say to people, this is not complicated. Do not get confused. Look at the biological design of the human body. If you want to eat a moderate amount of animal protein, you can go ahead and do it within a plant-based diet. If you want to be a bodybuilder, you want to have 23-inch arms and bench press 500 pounds and deadlift 700 pounds, you're not going to do it on a raw food diet optimally. You're better off eating some animal protein. But you're going to live, the trade-off is you're going to live a shorter life. That's simple. So meet yourself someplace in the middle. That's all.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show.